No, Swamiji. Hariom, Swamiji.
गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. We are in Amrutanubhava, chapter 6, words devalued, verse number 42. 41 talked about that after destruction of ignorance, the self is revealed, is not self-realization, as there never was darkness in the sun. These are points to be contemplated upon. Can you destroy darkness in order to reveal the sun? No. From sun's point of view, there is no darkness. You are the Atma. How can you remove that which does not exist? Ignorance is not existing. We saw last class. It has got no standing. See? So that which is not there, how can you remove it? How can you remove your shadow? It doesn't exist. It appears, but it doesn't exist. So same way, there is no need to focus on ignorance. You only worry about, contemplate on the being that you essentially are. So, and we saw in detail, if one attempts to remove ignorance by the strength of logic, understanding, words, study, etc., all this will only add to the ignorance, not remove it. Because all these are expressions of ignorance. See, these points which are being made here, if you can apply it on yourself right now that I don't have to do anything, I am, then it is good. But majority of us are not in that disposition. So then what we are told? Yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, pratyahara, dhara, dhyan, samadhi. So what is happening? By the time you reach samadhi, your mind is quiet. Vaikhari madhyama pashyanti para. By the time you reach para, your mind is quiet. See? And when it becomes quiet, that time these statements which are given by Jnaneshwar Maharaj in the entire book, in his entire whatever he has written, all these are applicable. They are applicable right now also. If you can drop everything, good on you. But for a sadhaka, for a seeker who is, I have to do something, he has to understand there is nothing to do, nowhere to reach, nothing to remove. How can you remove that which does not exist? And all the exercises that you are doing, all the means that you are using to remove ignorance are expressions of ignorance. Concepts, bhav, bhakti, pranayam, yoga, shamadama, uparama, titiksha, shraddha, samadhan, all this is at the mind level only and the sensory level. All these are expressions of the mind, of the ignorance only. So how can effect remove the cause? Catch this point, and knowing this point, you come to consciously allow the mind to dissolve itself. Consciously. Consciously does not mean be conscious of the ignorance. No. Consciously means with awareness of the self. Because from self's point of view, there is nothing called ignorance. From sun's point of view, there is nothing called darkness. The ignorance conceals its own illusory nature and parades as if it is real. Te avidya tari mayavi, 42nd one. Pari mayavi vipanatsi lapavi, sacha ali abhavi, apuli he. The ignorance is an illusion and hides its own illusory nature and has come to be as if real, and the reality is seemingly hidden. This is so beautiful. This is a beautiful definition of ignorance. Avidya is such a great power, the Maya Shakti, that it is able to conceal its own illusory nature. See? Bhagwan Shankaracharya in Sadachar says, in the sky of Satchidananda, the Maya is the cloud covering the Atma, mind is the lightning, and I am the body notion is the thunder. In that darkness, ignorance is the torrential rain. Here Jnaneshwar Maharaj says that avidya covers its own nature, namely that it is not real. How does it cover? By expanding itself, by creating children and grandchildren. How does it cover its absence? By producing desires and karma. Then it attains the status of Satyavastu. And what is the Satyavastu? Oh, I am ignorant. I did not know that I am the self. I am agnostic. I am gnostic. I did not know. And I do not know becomes the knowledge. Look at it. Then it attains the status of Satyavastu. So that becomes real. Self doesn't become real. I don't know becomes real. Today's children only say that. I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Or maybe nowadays. Maybe. Then it attains the status of Satyavastu in its own absence. You know, people have written books on shadow. People have written books on shadow. How to come to know the personality of a person through shadow. Any Baivkufi. Similarly, people have written books on body. People have written books on pranayam. People have written books on mind, emotions, intellect. What will it deliver? It cannot deliver anything. But we have taken it to be so important. Survival is important. Having a job or a profession is important. See? Exactly the same way. Oh, what are all these? These are expressions of ignorance. In this way, this avidya or maya is such a peculiar power that it conceals its own absence and gains the status of real presence and it comes into existence in its own absence. In other words, how is the ignorance expressing? It is expressing as ego. Is there anything called ego? When you search for it, you don't find it. But your whole life you're living, I am a husband, I am a father, I am a son, I am a man, my senses are becoming weak as I'm getting old, I was born, I am going to die. Who is this I? Who is this I? It does not exist. Another way you can put it. और इसी में लगे हुए हैं. To maintain this I, to strengthen this I. And it's not going to lead any result. Because this I, and it comes and into existence in its own absence. The I appears in its own absence. A ghost appears in its own absence. It exists. I see it. But it is not there. Imagination in your mind, you see it, but it is not there. Dream, you see it, but it is not there. It is not there. The same status is of the waking world. फिर तो कहीं आगे जाके बात बनेगी. Then you will move forward. Well, there is no place to move forward. When you will be as you are, there is no place to move forward. When we recall that he who said this was a mere teenager at the time of giving out this text, one is convinced that such a height of subtle thought could not be the manifestation of human endeavor or intellect, but could only be the expression of one who is behind the Amrutatva and Anubhava. This divine knowledge that poured out of him like Ganges from heaven can be understood and absorbed only by unwavering Shraddha, love and reverence for the saint, the God and the Lord. The other day I was watching the video, and in that suddenly it came. One young boy was being interviewed and he knows all the Vedas. You ask any paragraph, you ask any page meaning any composition, and you ask him any meaning, he will tell you from all the four Vedas. How old is he? 9 or 10 years old, maybe 11. How? यहाँ पे याद कर करके थक जाते हैं, हमसे याद नहीं होता उसको. एंड ही naturally. Who is it? Is that speech an expression of ignorance? It is someone else who's prompting all those words out of that young boy, isn't it? Same way, Jnaneshwar Maharaj here also, he is only in his teens, late teens, asked by his elder brother, teacher, to write his experience of realization. These words cannot be an expression of ignorance. Acha, I am going to write. It is not the ego I which is narrating this or writing this. Remember, I told you there was one girl who used to take care of Swami Tejamananji, and she was Hanuman Bhakt, and in her girls' hostel she used to imagine that her teacher is sleeping on the bed. She will give milk, water, and make the bed and wake him up in the morning and all that, and herself sleep on the floor. And one day she came and told me, Swami, that I have, see, this is the composition that has come. And in the night, in the middle of the night, she is only remembering her Guru Maharaj. And she has never studied Sanskrit, but Sanskrit shlokas are going in her head. And then next day she took a pencil and paper, kept it next to her. And when the shlokas came, she started scribbling. And next day she saw what it was, a beautiful composition as an offering to her guru. Is that expression of ignorance? See, on one hand we say all the words are expression of ignorance only. Huh? Ignorant, Pashyanti has become Madhyama, Madhyama has become Vaikhari. But on the other hand, we say that the reality is all pervasive. The reality is the material cause of the whole creation. And in this creation, there is Vaikhari Madhyama Pashyanti. So, who is speaking at that time? Is it the I who is identified with this body, who is making that composition in the middle of the night? When I ask you, do you know that there is a waker, dreamer, sleeper every day since you were born? You say yes. Who is answering? Is it the ego I which is answering? Or is it the absolute one? Now this example is very clear. But we have not looked into it. It cannot be the waker who can say, yes, I have experienced waking dream and deep sleep since birth till today. It cannot be, because he has got no data. He was absent in dream and sleep. Who? The waker. So who is answering? The all-knowing one. Oh, when I said yes, I know, I'm the all-knowing one. Yes, you are the all-knowing one. Not only then, all the time. All the time you are the all-knowing one. Well, you know the time also. You are beyond time. Masters also speak. Dongre Maharaj was there in Maharashtra and Gujarat. He was blind when he was born. Something happened and he was born blind. But he wrote thousands and thousands of compositions. Surdas, you have heard of Surdas? Born blind. How many compositions he has written? Anand Mahima never studied, never went to school, never studied scriptures, but every word that used to come out of her mouth. Look at her videos on YouTube. Shirdi Sai Baba, Satya Sai Baba, Ammachi. Is that the ego which is speaking there? No. This ego is the ghost who is covering itself up. How does he cover itself up? By creating a mesh or a net of words. So you have a choice, we have a choice, either to be the ego or to be the absolute one. And I've given you the example. That disposition we have to try and maintain throughout the day. For that, you'll have to keep thinking in that manner. Thinking means you have to keep taking that position again every time, every moment, with alertness, that I'm not the waker, I'm not the dreamer, I'm not the sleeper. But don't keep saying, I'm not, I'm not, I'm not. Keep saying, I am the absolute one. Where are we? Yadyat Shraddha Saha Eva Saha. Wherever your faith is, so you are. As one's faith and devotion to Ishvara, Guru and Atma, these are the four places. Shraddha in the Ishvara, that Ishvara alone appears as the scriptures, Shraddha in the scriptures. Those scriptures cannot be understood by ourselves, so Shraddha in the Guru, that Ishvara alone is appearing as Guru Maharaj. And last but not the least, Shraddha or faith in our ability to have the correct disposition when the Guru is speaking to us. Here Jnaneshwar Maharaj, when he is speaking to us, or Anubhavanji is speaking to us through the commentary, are we available? As one's faith and devotion to Ishvara, Guru and Atma becomes total and uncompromising, the real meaning and import of every word of the saint will lift itself out of the text and pierce straight into the heart. This is where Shraddha and reverence is required. We are so in tune with the Guru that the word strike the chord. Just as on a sitar or a veena, the strings are so tight, alert, there is no looseness in it, but tight enough not to break, loose enough, not so loose that no music comes out of them, and the strings are not so tight that they snap. And then when the player comes, puts just one string, puts the finger on it, the music flows. That should be our state. Not so loose that we are lazy, procrastinating, sleepy, hungry, I need a sip of water all the time to hydrate because some idiot on the TV and YouTube has said you have to keep hydrating yourself. I have to sleep 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, otherwise you only create the problem that I have to sleep for 8 hours, and then if you don't sleep, you become problematic to yourself. Everything is fine the way nature is unfolding. As long as we are attentive of the conscious principle, everything is fine. And that attentiveness towards the conscious principle, that poise, that has to be maintained with alertness and vigilance. That is the tightness of the string, the correct tension in the string of the in the veena. This correct tension in your body. We are not just slumping and listening. We are not. We are alert. We are straight. We are inspired. We are looking. We are equanimous. We are attentive of the conscious principle that we are. And then when he plays through you, just like a veena player, when he plays through the veena, then the music comes. Let him play through you. I given you just one or two examples of that girl in ashram and here Gnaneshwar Maharaj. The Lord is playing. It is His words. It cannot be Gnaneshwar Maharaj's words. Not as a person, because we are thinking Gnaneshwar Maharaj is a person. With the body, this, that, everything. And for general purpose, that is how it is. But when Gnaneshwar Maharaj is writing, or through him this is coming, he is not separate from the infinite. And this is the art of gaining knowledge. Faith, reverence, surrender, availability, the correct tension, be at one ment with the person, with the Mahatma. And when that Mahatma, takes over your mind, then all those qualities, what his understanding, everything will flow unobstructed. The obstruction is our ego. Obstruction is the notions of the ego, the convictions of the ego. And we have to mold our mind in such a way that our convictions lead to the dissolution of the ego. And that cannot happen by thinking about ego. That happens by thinking about the infinite. Or by remaining silent and remaining alert. This you catch. As one's faith and devotion to Ishvara, Guru and Atma becomes total and uncompromising, the real
Alert from calendar, Royal Hobart Regatta, Tasmania.
The real meaning and import of every word of the saint will lift itself out of the text and pierce straight into the heart. We are imagining that the text is there and I am here, I don't understand Amrutanubhava, I need to listen to it from a teacher. All this is at the ignorant level. This is all because ego is thinking that way. But as we come closer and closer to the Mahatma, the Gnaneshwar Maharaj, in our reverence, in our focus, in our availability, then it is only the word which lights up the spark within us. It's only the word of the Guru Maharaj which which ignites us, and the final dissolution takes place. Without a Guru Vakya, that dissolution is not possible. Now Sant Jnaneshwara begins on the thought that if this non-existence is the nature of ignorance, how can the words remove or destroy the non-existence ignorance? It is true, isn't it? We have already seen that. But yet, how can the word remove or destroy the non-existence ignorance whose effect is the word? देखो कैसे चक्कर में फंसे हुए हम. बहुता परी ऐसी अविद्या नाही आपैसी, आता बोलू हातवसी कवणावरी. Thus, having established by various ways that the ignorance is non-existent, how can the word remove or destroy the non-existent ignorance? Ignorance is not self-existent. It only appears, but it is not self-existent. Ignorance is not self-existent. This is This has been proved above in various ways. How can the word ever remove ignorance in that way? Evidently, Jnaneshwar Maharaj is not yet finished, that he has been successful in putting his ideas across. It is so difficult to communicate the incommunicable. So he begins to explain this anirvachaniya avidya again afresh. It's a problem to explain that which does not exist. And the only tool you have is the words which are the expressions of avidya. So Jnaneshwar Maharaj, chalo फिर से. Like we go to someone's house and they start talking about their children. Swamiji, my child is such a great musician, my child is this, my child is that, my child is getting married and he has got this profession, and when he was small he used to play like this, when he was small he was interested in this. Heard once, after a few weeks again they invite, again you go, again the same repetition, as if they feel they have not told you at all, that you have not heard it at all. The mother is wanting to sing the glory of her child again and again. And every time she sings, she feels it is the first time she is doing it. So much inspiration. The other fellow knows, अरे बोर हो गया. हम भी वही कर रहे हैं. 25 years, repeating the same Vedanta. With gusto, with inspiration. As if it is the first time I am speaking. We are speaking. And the listener, like when I go to someone's house, I get bored of the same repetition. Maybe if we are not but this topic is different. If we are not subjective, we will become bored. So Jnaneshwar Maharaj, he is also repeating as if he has not said it anything. I have to repeat, the thought has to be completed. How else can I approach this topic of ignorance? So yet he begins again. Sauliye te savale halaya bhoya adale ki hale ni antarale thotave hatu. On striking the shadow by a sword, one hits the ground, and on hitting the space, one yields nothing. If one tries to cut the shadow with a sword, all one will succeed in doing is to hit the ground or cut the grass. It is impossible to harm the shadow because it is not an object that exists and which can be removed or killed. What a pertinent example. Exactly the same way, ignorance cannot be killed. Why? Because it does not exist. So in meditation, don't go, there is void. There is nothing called void. There is only you, the conscious one. Then why is the topic of ignorance introduced? Because you feel you are ignorant. Why? We never, I can't remember. No. I have to search search for truth. I have to realize myself. I want moksha. I want to be free. Many people get on this path without reading any scriptures. It comes from within. I want to be free. Arey Baba, you are already free. No. How can you say I am free? Then the language comes in, that this feeling that you are not free is like ignorance. And knowledge, wisdom means you are already free. That is your true nature. And then all the words of the scriptures are bringing you to that point. So here he says, so idea is, see what our approach is. Mooladhar means security, Swadhishthan means desires, Manipur means accumulation. Oh, these are the three gateways to hell. So don't get involved in securing your life. Don't get involved in satisfying and ticking off your bucket list of desires. Don't accumulate. These are all expressions of ignorance. And you start focusing on these only. Am I doing it out of lack of security? Am I doing this out of desire? Am I doing this out of feeling like collecting because without it I cannot live? See? So we are creating a journey where there is no journey. And by giving up security, we want to know the self. By giving up desires for the world, we want to know the self. By not accumulating the world and memories, we want to know the self. By knowing in Anahat, I come to know that I am not the body. By knowing I am not the body, I want to know the self. It is not possible. In Vishuddhi Chakra, by remaining as I, which is untouched by anything, body, breath, mind, intellect, including thought, or maybe not the thought, but the I is still there. I want to know the self. It is not possible because your attention is still on the emptiness. What else can I remove now? There is nothing left. Then why am I not realizing myself? All this is the result of objective approach. Acha, I will become subjective. Then what do? You start using words to be subjective. You use the thought of sleep to go to sleep. But do you remain in the thought of sleep or you surrender to sleep? You surrender. Why don't you do that when you are listening to these potent teachings of Jnaneshwar Maharaj? Why don't you surrender to the self? Why don't you be the self? Why do you remain a listener only? Why do you remain a thinker only? Why you are still trying to work it out? That working it out is like cutting the shadow with a sword. It will not lead anywhere. The ego is functioning. Ego can never find the solution. Sattvic ego, bigger problem. It is what? Apne muh miya mithu. It feels, it has come, it is very sattvic, it can chant, it can understand, it can do this, it can do that. But realization, far away. Because shadow is not an object that exists and which can be removed or killed. So also is the state of ignorance. The ignorance. It does not exist, therefore it cannot be killed and removed. Or if one tries to kill, in the same way with the sword of the word, if one attempts to destroy the shadow of ignorance, the result will be the same. So now understand, what have we done in this chapter and the previous chapter? We have given the correct status for the word. What is the word? The word is, words were in the previous chapter Satchidananda. We said we have used the word Sat to cancel Asat. We have used Chit to cancel Achit. We have used Anand to cancel Dukkham. Nitya to cancel Anitya. Shuddha to cancel Ashuddha. So we have been using words only to counteract the opposite, not to create the truth. So same way, by Madhyama we are checkmating Vaikhari. By Pashyanti we are checkmating Madhyama. By Para we are checkmating Pashyanti. You understand? But then what after that? There is nothing. That's your choice. Either you focus on nothing, or you take yourself that you are the presence. Who is the one who knows there is nothing? Is that something which is absent? In the same way, with the word of sword, one attempts to destroy the shadow of ignorance. The result will be the same. So ignorance, the words are, one attempts to destroy the shadow of ignorance. Or if one tries to kill the space with the sword, one will utterly fail. So also will the word fail in destroying ignorance. Word only tries to give reality to the non-existent ignorance. Therefore, it is wise to go beyond ignorance. Meaning, in other words, go beyond words. What does it mean to go beyond words? Vaikhari, Madhyama, Pashyanti, Para. Para means going beyond, transcend the word. And what is the nature of the word? Expressed word or unexpressed word? Which is nothing but word and silence. Go beyond both. There you are. The next two ovis present another set of beautiful examples. का मृगजळाच्या पाणी गगनाच्या आलिंगनी नातरी चुंबनी प्रतिबिंबाच्या. Or examples are, or like one wanting to drink the mirage waters, or desiring to embrace space, or wanting to kiss a reflection. That is how we are attempting. A person is running towards the mirage to quench his thirst with its water, or he wants to embrace the space or to kiss the reflection. उठावला बोथरे तवका तो सुनाट पड़े आसिका अविद्या नाशी तर्का तैसे होये. and therefore getting up to do so will result in futility, so will the efforts to destroy the ignorance by logic. Ignorance cannot be destroyed because it is not there in the first place. It is existing in its own absence, just like the shadow, just like the darkness. From sun's point, there is nothing called the darkness. But those who are separate from the sun, for them there is day and night. For sun there is no day and night. And therefore he gets up to do these three things, but then all his enthusiasm dies down because what he is seeking to do will only be futile. What do we want to do? Don't get disturbed by the world, don't disturb the world. Don't get disturbed by your own mind. Calm down your body through yoga. Calm down your breath through pranayam. Calm down your mind through shama, dhamma, etc. Through japa. But in this whole process, we have not brought our attention to the self. I should not be disturbed by the world. I should not be disturbed by the world. I should not be disturbed by the world. The attention is on the world. And then the phone calls come, then the questions come. Swamiji, we are practicing what we heard, but it is not happening. Why is it not happening? Because your attention is still on that which does not exist. Your attention is, I don't want to be disturbed by the world. That is a byproduct, Baba. That is a byproduct. You are focused on sleep. The waking world going out of your mind is the byproduct. If you focus on removing the waking world out of your mind, you will never go to sleep. Right or not? Exactly the same way. Let the phenomena take care of itself because it is in its own, it's existing in its own absence. You be. And therefore he gets up to do these three things, but then all his enthusiasm dies because what he is seeking to do will only be futile. In the same way, when the word and all the logic tries to destroy the ignorance, it comes to realize that there is nothing like ignorance, and all the enthusiasm, the power and logic at the command of the words are null and void. You started Vaikhari with what? Words. You moved on to Madhyama with what? Words, not in the mouth but in the mind. You moved on to Pashyanti with what? Those words became unexpressed words. That's all. And then you found yourself in a disposition that sometimes the word are expressing, sometimes they are not. You are in para. But if your attention is on the expression and non-expression of the words, you are still missing the point. If your attention is, because I have to do something, I have to do something. But if you do that, if that practice is from efforts, it is leading to effortlessness, which is silence. When silence happens, Not by, you cannot think and create silence. It must happen as a result of dissolution. Vaikhari dissolves, Madhyama dissolves, then silence begins. Now, instead of saying that I am silent, mind is silent, why don't you focus on the one who is aware of the silence? The one who is present as the presence in the absence of the words. Then story over. Then thereafter there is nothing to do, nowhere to go, nothing to practice. And from that point, from the point of view of presence, it is like the sun. There is no day and night. From the absolute one, there is no manifestation and unmanifestation, nothing like that. The futility of wanting to destroy ignorance is further illustrated. I see avidya nashavi heva helazo jivi tene sali kadhavi akashachi. Thus, he who desires the destruction of ignorance should first of all try to destroy the space. If you are successful in it, then you go and destroy ignorance. So this is the penultimate step. Jnaneshwar Maharaj is saying, before you attempt to destroy ignorance, go and try to destroy the space. And what happens when you try to destroy the space? What happens when you try to destroy the space? What is space for us? Bhutakash. What is the source of Bhutakash? Chittakash. Oh, Chittakash. So that outside space is the effect, and the source of it, the cause of it is the mind. Oh, the space of the mind. What is the source of the space of the mind? We come to Chidakash. Thereafter, story over. Then you will continue to function through the Chittakash and Chidakash, but not enslaved by them, not entangled in them. For whom? For other people. For you, you are Chidakash. You are of the nature of light. For light, there is nothing called darkness. That darkness is expressing as Chittakash and Bhutakash. The gross space and the subtle space. Gross is the effect, subtle is the cause. For Chidakash, nothing is there. It alone is. Just as for the sun there is no darkness, when your mind has become zero, no thoughts, and if you are the presence which is self-effulgent, can that self-effulgent self be illuminating the darkness? Will you be able to see darkness in the light of the self? Because the light of nature of the self is light. When sun illuminates, does it say, oh, I have removed the darkness? Or does it say, oh, now slowly the darkness is going? Can it say that? This is the mistake that we are doing in our meditation. We want to remove ignorance. We want to remove the shadow of ignorance through the effects of ignorance. Thus, he who wants to destroy this non-existent ignorance should first try to peel off the skin, bark of the space, Just as this is an impossibility, so too it is impossible for the word to destroy ignorance. These are very, very potent words for one who is very subjective, the one who is having mumukshutvam, the one who is very keen to know, keen to be the self. Not tomorrow, not day after tomorrow, not when he dies or she dies, not one day, right here and now. By intellect and logic alone, the truth cannot be known. Without faith and devotion, no amount of erudition will help an individual to progress on the spiritual path. Intellectual evolution by one's own effort leads only to intellectual arrogance. But when the same intellectual evolution is because of the grace of the Lord and bestowed because of devotion, then the individual is able to utilize that intellect for the discovery of the divine in and through the total manifestation. This is what we saw in yesterday's class in Adhyatma Ramayana. Brahmaji is the creator. His source is Narayana, not the Narayana you know. He is formless and attributeless. Because when Brahmaji went back into the lotus and went into the stalk, he did not see anything. There he only heard the word first time. Tapas. So he came back. Tapas. And who is Brahmaji? At the individual level, he is our Antakaran Chatushtaya, Mana, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankar, mind, intellect, memory and ego. These are the four heads that we have within. And what did he do? Intuitively he came to know that his job is to produce, create creation. How to create creation? He created the creation thinking of his source, and it was an offering to him, to his source. And while he was creating, his disposition was that the source alone is expressing through him. The source alone is expressing as these ideas that I have to create a creation. The source alone is making him feel that I have to create the creation as an offering to my source. So he is ever aware of his source. And when anyone from his creation comes, does some tapasya, does some austerities, and invokes Brahmaji the creator, he has got no choice but to give a boon to that person. He has got no choice. Because he has done the required single pointed focus on him. So Ravana, he did so much focus and he did so much tapasya that Brahmaji had to give him the boon. So he became invincible. He became invincible where? In the three worlds. What are the three worlds? Waking, dream, deep sleep. He was master of the three worlds. The three worlds, the lower world, the nether world, the earthly world and the heavenly world. He was the master of the three. But he was master with body identification. If there was no body identification, he would have been. He wanted, with that power, he wanted to be immortal with body. If you try that, if you want to be immortal with objectivity, objectivity is for the one who feels he is the body, then Bhagwan has to take avatar to finish you off. And he expanded his consciousness. Meaning he expanded his mind there. See? He had great powers. All the planets, all the devatas were under his control. The time was also in his control. And he thought he was invincible as the body. And then Mother Earth became very disturbed because of all the atrocities he was committing on the earth. Killing the righteous people, sannyasis, sadhus, good people, looting away, enjoying the misery of other people, sadism. So she went in the form of cow to Brahmaji along with all the gods. So this body of ours is made up of earth. When this body dies, the solid part will go back to earth. The water will go back to water, the fire will go back to the total fire, the air will go back to total air, and the space which is occupying will become, which was always one with the total space anyway. So this earth, it is called as the cow. It takes the form of a cow, and all the devatas which are present within this body only and at the outside at totality level, they all went to Brahmaji. And Brahmaji, he closed his eyes. He said, yeah, I understand what your problem is, but the solution to that problem, I know where it is available, but I can't give the solution because I only created this creation now. I only gave him the boons and I cannot kill him. I don't have a solution. So we have to go to some higher authority. It is out of my job description. And this beautiful thought came yesterday, that all of them went to the edge of the Kshir Sagar, the Milky Ocean. That Milky Ocean is our mind. When our thinking goes from Vaikhari Madhyama Pashyanti, we are at the edge of our mind. They do not enter the Kshir Sagar. They are always on the edge of the Kshir Sagar, edge of the Milky Ocean. And what does Brahmaji see there? He doesn't see anything because there's nothing to see. He has gone back to his source. This is just a story. All the earth and the devatas who are creation of Brahmaji, they all went together. To the Kshir Sagar. That means your senses are in control, your mind is introverted, senses are introverted, intellect is introverted. Now there is nowhere to go. We say there is nothing. He also sees nothing, but he knows there is something. This is from relative standpoint, from Brahmaji's standpoint. Because how can you experience or realize the formless, attributeless reality? You cannot have an association with it, you cannot surrender to it, you cannot know it. So he starts singing the praises of that reality. And when he sings the praises, just like if I think of you, you will get a hiccup in your own home. Or if you think of anyone near and dear, anyone you think of with focus, concentration, that person gets the message. So that infinite reality, that Vishnu, who is all pervading, there is no place he is not. He listens to this pure prayer, unadulterated prayer, free of arrogance, free of egoism. He appears. How does he appear? He appears as Chaturbhuj, Shankha Chakra Gada Padmadhari. See? He reveals. He comes in a user-friendly form. That infinite, formless, attributeless reality comes in a user-friendly form by way of which Brahmaji, who is a part of the creation, is able to have an association with him. And every time he comes in a different form. Sometimes as Mandarachal mountain, sometimes as Kachchap avatar, and the various avatars. It's never the same one all the time. Because mind is not the same all the time. See? So by intellect and logic alone, the truth cannot be known. To make this point, I told you this story. You cannot, truth is absolute. Jnaneshwar Maharaj is talking about the absolute one. He is not talking about the Ishvara. He is not talking about the Chaturbhuj form. Intellect and logic cannot reveal the absolute truth. Cannot be known. Without faith and devotion, no amount of erudition will help an individual to progress on the spiritual path. Intellectual evolution by one's own effort leads only to intellectual arrogance. Now Brahmaji is the ultimate ego, right? Mana Buddhi Chatta Ahankar at the totality level. He is the creator. Continuously creating the creation as an offering to the Lord, to his source. If he has an arrogance, and there are few times when he has had an arrogance, he has arrogance. First time when he was arrogant, his fifth head was cut. Another time he had arrogance, why my creation is not multiplying? Then his wife had to explain, why don't you create the creation in your own image? Then he listens, then he creates Manu and Shadarupa. Another time he had an arrogance, let me check this Krishna Kanhaiya, is he who they say he is? So he hid all his cows and calves and gwalas in the cave in the mountain. And while he was hiding them in the cave, Krishna Kanhaiya created a parallel creation of those calves, cows and gwalas, cowherds. Ditto. And that same Brahmaji, when he was happy with his work that he has created, he has done something to test this fellow, and after hiding them in the cave, he came back to his Brahma Lok, his abode. He found another Brahmaji sitting there. Arrogance. He found another Brahmaji sitting there. He was not allowed into his own abode. The doorkeeper said, hey, get out, you are an imposter. He said, no, I am the real one. He is the imposter. He said, you will go by yourself or should we kick you out? Now, no place to go. What to do? He says, I must have gone wrong somewhere. So he came down. Again back to Krishna Kanhaiya. And as he came down, before he came across the young Krishna, as he came down, he says, but he was thinking of who is this Krishna, who is this Krishna, who is this Krishna. As he was thinking only of Krishna, by the time he reached the earth, he started seeing, mind was focused on Krishna. Krishna is Satchidanand Swarup. So in every tree he started seeing Krishna, in every flower, in every blade of grass, in every atom, he started seeing Krishna, 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 Krishna. And suddenly he realized where he has gone wrong and went and fell at the feet of Krishna Kanhaiya Lal. See? That took place at earthly level, it took place for 1 year. The parallel creation was going on. For Brahmaji, it was a blink of an eye. He went and came, 1 second over, but 1 second of his was 1 year here on earthly plane. So until and unless he did not surrender, before he wanted to check out. With logic, we want to work it out. Intellectually, we want to be convinced. How can you convince that you are? Don't you know you are already? What conviction you need? What logic do you need that you are alive? So when we only remain involved in the words without faith and devotion, it will lead to arrogance. When we only have faith and devotion and no Vedanta, then it becomes emotional trip. When there is a healthy mixture of both, then dissolution comes about, and that which is real is known without words. How many more ways we can explain? But when the same intellectual evolution is because of the grace of God and bestowed because of devotion, then the individual is able to utilize that intellect for the discovery of the divine in and through the total manifestation. So, while we are speaking, while we are listening, if any understanding is taking place, our disposition should be not that I have understood. By the grace of the divine, understanding has taken place. Not by the grace of the Lord, I have understood. Again, I has come up. Arrogance. By the grace of the divine, understanding has taken place. Where? In the intellect. Intellect is a principle. Mind is a principle. It is not individual per person. It's a principle. Just like gravity is a principle. It is common to all. Intellect is common to all. Mind is common to all. Breath is common to all. Senses are common to all. Body is common to all. Day and night is common to all. Sun is common to all. The devatas are common to all. But we make it into specific. That's where the problem is. That's where arrogance comes. And when we are observing that these shifts are taking place within this equipment, I have done so many wrong things, I have done so many right things, I have lived in ignorance, whatever. Again, I is coming. We should not think that way. But whatever, as an individual, it has not gone yet. You will tend to speak that type of language. Immediately appropriate it to the Lord. That by grace of the Lord, at least the satsang has come into our life. By the grace of the Lord, the understanding is taking place. By the grace of the Lord, sadhana is taking place. By the grace of the Lord alone is making this mouth take His name. Don't take ownership. Don't take ownership. No, I am taking the name of the Lord. I get up in the morning. I have gone from Vaikhari to Madhyama. Gaya फिर ऐसी थप्पड़ पड़ेगा ना, you'll get a kick on the backside that you will not know. Where there is this arrogance, you can go up to 99 in the snake and ladder game. But at 99, that big snake with his mouth open is waiting. You don't come down to 1 You go out of the board, then you have to take birth again. So where there is ownership of sadhana, there is ownership of devotion, there is ownership, I am faithful, I am devoted. Who are you? He is the one who is playing with himself. You are nobody. There is nothing called individuality. It's a ghost appearing in its own absence. Then when we have this type of disposition, that everything is the grace of the infinite, then the individual is able to utilize that intellect for the discovery of the divine. So whether you have it on the Lord with form, then you will go to whatever that form can give you, bestow upon you or grace you. If you have your attention on the divine, which is formless and attributeless, absolute, then that will be the case. For the discovery of the divine in and through the total manifestation. It is not that the grace is only in this body and in this mind and in this intellect. No, that grace is the substratum, the material out of which the entire creation is made. It is one without a second. There is only water in the oceans and seas and the waves. Then where are the oceans and seas and the waves? They are merely appearing. They are only appearing. Appearing where? Appearing in their own absence. Ignorance is appearing in its own absence. Wave is appearing in its own absence. An ornament is appearing in its own absence. A pot is appearing in its own absence. Then what is the reality then? The water is the reality. The gold is the reality. The mud is the reality. All the forms and all the names. That is Jagat. Jagat is Nama Roop. Name and form is existing in its own absence. It appears, but actually it's not there. You go and touch a wave, what will you touch? If your attention is on the water with form, you'll say, oh, I'm touching Indian Ocean, I'm touching Southern Ocean, I'm touching Arabian Sea, I'm touching the Pacific Ocean. But if your attention is on the formless, attributeless, I am touching the infinite waters. Eyes are looking at wave, but you are touching the infinite waters. This evolution in thinking, this expanded consciousness from wave to ocean, ocean to absolute, we don't have to take that journey. We don't have to make that journey. That journey of the 7 chakras is only in ignorance, because you are considered you are an individual. Because you are convinced that there are these 7 levels to be crossed. These are the 7 levels of expanded consciousness. Because you are not ready to accept that you are the infinite consciousness at this very moment. You are not ready. So then somehow, some way, the game has to go on. Acha lage raho. Like Mooladhar, Swadhisthana, Manipur, fall down, again climb up, again fall down, again reach Anahat, again fall down. Arey, phir phas gaya. Lage raho. like Brahmaji going to his abode, another Brahmaji sitting. For Krishna it is only a game because he's playing with himself. For Brahmaji, it's a question of his existence. Of what? Of his ego. Because at that moment, he tried to test the infinite. He tried to test his own boss. Here Jnaneshwar Maharaj is trying to refute the vain attempt of those Vedantins who think that by the study of the scriptures alone, or by intelligence, or by much listening, the truth can be attained. Vedanta Paddhati is Shravanam Mananam Nididhyasanam, listening the words of the Master, reflecting upon the words of the Master and removing your doubts. When no doubts are remaining, then your attention on that which you are seeking becomes constant as I. But it can lead to an arrogance that I listened, I reflected, I am contemplating, I am in samadhi, I. Unless constant love, devotion and surrender to the Lord, for the Lord and in the Lord becomes a way of one's life, spiritual evolution is not possible. Understand, spiritual evolution, spiritual growth is not possible by one's own efforts. Spiritual growth is not possible by the ego, only by grace. Who is it that plucked you from your daily living and made you interested? One day he gave you a thought that let's go to satsang, let's study Ramayana, let's do japa. Who is that? Is it your efforts? Do desires come by your effort? When you want to desire something, the desire doesn't come. When you don't want it, it comes. When you want to remain awake, you cannot remain awake. When you want to sleep, you cannot go to sleep. Everything in our life is happening by His grace alone. Every breath is His grace. Every thought is His grace. When we become awake to this fact that every aspect of our life is pervaded by His divine will, then love and devotion to that infinite will make us, we are surrendering, we are thinking about Him with love and devotion. And when we think of that which is infinite love, infinite compassion, infinite knowledge, then that becomes, because we are focused on Him, then that becomes our disposition. We are focused on sleep. What is sleep? Zero thoughts, zero mind. So thinking about sleep, and we know sleep is equal to zero mind, we eventually become zero mind, isn't it? Same way, when we think about the Lord, if you think about Indra, you will get to that point. If you think of some higher Siddha Loka, you will get to that point. When you think of Brahmaji, you will reach Satyalok. When you think of Narayana, you will reach Vaikuntha. When you think of Saket, you will reach Ram. When you think of Kailash, you will reach Lord Shiva. And all those qualities and all that disposition and all that knowledge, all that will a natural download into you. Natural download. Effortless download. All you have to do is focus on the one who has that power, who is that power. And if you make one shift in that approach, that power is not other than the self that I am, there you are, then there is no objectivity left. So here Jnaneshwar Maharaj is saying these are the two wings, Gyan and Bhakti. With this you take the flight. Listen to satsang, no doubt. But how do you listen? With faith, reverence, devotion, love. That what is being talked about is the Lord who is expressing through this body. I am nobody. I am no one. There is no satta, there is no existence of the ego. But we live as if we are Tismar Khan. Sant Jnaneshwar continues to ridicule those who insist on wanting to destroy the ignorance. We will continue in that vein in our next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.